Welcome back everybody to the Prepared Pathfinder, and what we're going to be talking about today are some methods for survival navigation. So then, survival navigation, what is it? Why would we need to use it? So survival navigation is basically, it's just about direction finding. So it's working out where north is, and from there basically walking in a direction so you can get back to safety. Alright, so why would you need to use it? Because I mean, nowadays we should all at least be carrying a compass when you're out in the wilderness. Most people are carrying on top of that things like GPSs, smartwatches, apps on their phones, all that sort of good stuff, you know, the gadgets that we've got nowadays. However, what we're talking about here is generally following some sort of incident of some sort. So say if you're in an accident in a vehicle or an airplane or something, and you're in an area, you know, you're on holiday or something where you're not really expecting to have to navigate, but because potentially, you know, you've had a plane crash or whatever, you could have casualties. You may have to then find yourself way out of the wilderness to go and get help, try and get help for those casualties, or just to escape yourself, you know, just to get back to safety. Another potential scenario, thinking back to my E&E video, if you were held captive for some reason, so if you was travelling in an area of the world that wasn't as safe as what it is in the Western world, and for some reason you've been taken captive, and you've managed to effect your escape using bits and pieces that you potentially be carrying on you that I mentioned in that E&E video, you've then got to find your way back to some kind of safety, alright? So that could just be getting yourself to a coastline, to a river, to a road, something like that, but moving on a direction, so you're moving in a constant direction instead of kind of maybe going around in circles, chasing your tail. And in an area like, say, the jungle, in a complex environment like that, it's actually a lot easier than you might think to actually walk in the wrong direction, go around in circles and stuff. So it's just about finding your direction to enable you to get back to safety. So the first method I'm going to talk about then is the easiest one, and basically what we're talking about is using a button compass. So as I mentioned on my E&E video, what you can do is secrete items within your clothing and hide them. And one of the things I mentioned is wearing a lanyard around the neck with just a couple of essentials on it. And what I've always got in mind is a decent button compass. Now this is one of the ones from Sunto, and it's a really decent one. You can actually offset it, so you've not just got the north pointer, you know, to follow or to work out from. You can actually offset it using the bezel there. Okay, so that's a cracking little compass there. Obviously, if you were in captivity or something, this could be found on your body if you've got it just underneath your t-shirt or something, and that may be taken off you. Going on from there then, I mentioned in my belt, I'm also carrying a small button compass. This one here, and this is the one that I got from Jacobite Solutions, quite a decent little one. Again, I mentioned in that video, if you're going to carry this sort of stuff, spend a couple of quid on it because it may save your life. Don't get the crappy little plastic things from China off eBay. But yeah, that's hidden within that escape belt there. And third one I've got to show you then is this little army issue brass button compass, and you can see how small that is in my hand. So basically what you can do with this is, because it is so small, you can secrete it in your clothing. You can put it within the seams of your clothing, you can put it in a small survival tin, you could put it in your hat, you can put it anywhere because it's so tiny. And it is actually, you know, it's quite a decent little compass that. It's got the luminous point on the north pointer, and it's definitely usable. However, using any of these button compasses, it's not like using a normal compass, okay, like using a silver compass. You need to basically just realise that it's just giving you a general direction, so it's to find yourself out of that dangerous area, as I mentioned at the intro there. It's not precise navigation, so what you're going to be doing is making sure you're moving on a constant bearing, rough bearing at least. So the next method I'm going to talk about is using an analog watch. Okay then, for the northern hemisphere, what we're going to do is take the watch and we're going to point the hour hand at the sun, and in this case today that's like so. And then what we're going to do is divide the angle between the hour hand and the 12, and that will give us our north-south line. So in this case here, the north-south line is approximately there. North being down to the left, south being up to the right. Okay then, for the southern hemisphere, what we're going to do this time is point the 12 at the sun. So that's now pointing at the sun, and again we're going to divide the angle between the hour hand and the 12. So again the angle is going to be like this for the north-south line. Okay, so the next method I'm going to talk about is the shadow stick method. The pros of this method are you don't need many resources to actually conduct it. All you really need is an open space that's clear so you can project your shadow. You need a bit of sun, which isn't always available in the UK, and you need a stick of around about 1 metre. To measure 1 metre, basically for most average adults, reach your arm out, point your finger, and from the end of your finger to sort of like your centre of your throat is around about 1 metre. It doesn't have to be exact though. So what we're going to do is we're going to find an area that's relatively clear, relatively flat as well, and the ground, what you want is something that's not covered in things like ferns, grass, stuff like that, that's going to sort of distort the shadow. So you need to be able to work out where the actual point of the shadow is. Okay, so I've moved into the centre of my clearing. Then I'm going to place my stick down in an area where I can see the shadow is going to be cast in a clear area. Okay, so that's the shadow stick in place there. You can see it's casting the shadow, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a marker in the end of that shadow. So what that will denote is that will be the western point of the east-west line. Then I'm going to leave this for 15 minutes and mark the second point. Okay, so that's been about 15 minutes. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to follow the second shadow, and at the end of the shadow I'm going to place my second marker, and that's right there. Okay, so what that then does is that shows the west-east line looking from left to right. I'm going to place a stick there now just to show that. Okay, so that's the west-east line, west from the left, east on the right. Just to show this, obviously you wouldn't be using a compass because if you had a compass in the first place, you wouldn't be doing any of this. But just to demo this, I'll place my silver compass down. And you can see there the red magnetic needle is pointing north. So east is to the right, west is to the left. Next method I'm going to talk about then is using a magnetized needle. As you can see here, this is my Wazoo case cap that I spoke about in my E&E video previously. What I've got recently is a new addition in the side here. So this is also made by the same company. It's made by Wazoo Survival Gear, and this is what they call one of their tool tubes. So this one here is the hardware tube. And what this has got in it is it's got some small fishing items. So it's got a couple of hooks there, probably see those. There's a couple of safety pins, a couple of weights for the fishing, and there's also a magnetized needle just here at the bottom there. You can probably just about see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that out of the packet, and I'm not going to break the end off like you would do in an emergency situation because I want to use this again, and I'm just going to basically poke that out the end of the packet. Okay. Now this is pre-magnetized, all right, so you've already won half the battle if you've got something that's, you know, good to go before you need to use it. You can improvise a magnetized needle yourself, and I'll talk about that in a second. You know, obviously you could carry a button compass in your cap anyway, but this is just another method. So if you didn't have your own magnetized needle pre-made ready to go, then what you could do is basically get a magnet from wherever. You could scavenge it. So if you was in an urban escape and evasion scenario, you could potentially go skip ratting through some bins and stuff. You know, there's lots of magnets in things nowadays. So in transistor radios you've got them. You've got them in doors on fridges, doors on other kinds of furniture, even within clothing to kind of close front flaps and pockets and stuff sometimes. Few things that I carry then that have got needles in it. First one here is this Fidlock bag. Okay, so this is a waterproof bag that's made by a company in Germany called Fidlock, obviously, and this actually uses magnets to close the top and make it waterproof. All right, so what I could do is if I got something like a needle that I needed to magnetize, I could just drag it along like so, and eventually it would become magnetized. Okay, and you could test that by dangling it on a piece of string afterwards and just making sure it is actually pointing in one direction. Okay, another thing you could use then is that you could be carrying potentially on my day sack. What I've got is on my hydration tube, I've got this little gadget. It's made by Osprey, and it's got a little magnetised point on it, and what that marries up with is this on the chest strap to kind of just lock it into place there. So that's another thing you could potentially use. And this is something else. This is something my partner would carry on her. This is on her escape and evasion kit. So this is from Jacobite Solutions, and it's their slim escape necklace. All right, so this is designed for females, which I think is a great idea. There's lots of female operators out there in the field in, you know, hostile environments today, and they've put like a little decorative thing on the end that's got a magnet to close it. So again, you could use that for magnetising the needle. This is actually a friction line for defeating plastic cuffs and things like that. And then you've got a glass breaking point on the end there as well for breaking out of, say, a car. If you was bundled in the back of a car, you could break the window with that. But anyway, going back to the needle itself then. So you've got your needle out. Next thing you're going to need to do is get some cord, which obviously I've got stowed in my hat as well. I mentioned that on the escape and evasion kit video. And what we need to do then is basically get the end of the cord and start pulling out the guts of the cord. So you need a really thin strand, and what you're going to do is just break off a piece of that. So cut the end of that, bite it off or whatever, and then what you're going to do is suspend the needle on the end of that, so it's just basically floating of its own free will and pointing north to south. Right then, so when you've attached your cordage to your needle, you're basically just going to get in an area where you're out of the wind, and this is a very gentle operation here. You need to just let it hang and let it kind of point in its own direction, let it settle. So as you can see there, it's kind of settled in an average direction, looking kind of pretty much left to right as you're looking. And what I'll do is I'll get my compass in there now and just show you that that's pretty much bang on. So I'm quite happy with that. Another way you can do this is by threading the needle through a leaf and just letting it sit within some sort of liquid, so maybe some sort of cup or something, and letting it settle, and it will find its own direction like that as well. And obviously that's a north-south direction there. You've got to work out which is which by looking at the direction of the sun, you know, setting and rising, east-west. So that's just 4 basic survival navigation methods there. There are other methods out there. Anybody's got anything good to say about some of the stuff they've done, put it in the comments section below. And obviously I've not even touched on any night navigation yet using the stars. Okay, so as I've said, this isn't precise navigation, it's direction finding, but it is a sort of thing, if things were to go horribly wrong unexpectedly when you're out on holiday somewhere, it could be the difference between life and death. Okay, between basically getting totally and hopelessly lost and actually finding your way back to safety. So just one thing to bear in mind, you know, it's the sort of thing that unless you've practiced it yourself, then you may not be confident and happy with it. So for people that want to stay prepared, you know, and take ownership of their own safety and stuff, maybe try these things out yourself so you're happy with them. So if it was to go horribly wrong, you've got that option. Okay, so don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thanks for all your follows and watches, and I'll be seeing you again soon. Cheers.